All right, here we are on a Sunday, back for part 11 of the Sodom and Gommorah series. Part 11. Each part is about an hour and 20 minutes long, and we're on part 11. Can you dig that? You see, what I'm proving by doing these series, and every part is different, there's more new information. What I am proving to my YouTube enemies, my YouTube foes, my YouTube detractors, is that I'm in a league of my own. I mean, these niggas come out here and call themselves truth seekers and apostles and all kind of weirdo shit. But they ain't got no information. No information. I'm on part 11. And nobody, no Bible teacher on YouTube, and I be tagging mofos just so you know, none of them have sent a rebuttal or a response to try to keep the narrative on homosexuality and Sodom. None of them. My biggest enemy, my biggest detractor, a lame nigga from Arkansas who says he's a Bible teacher, talks about he has murder doctrine, but he really has struggle doctrine. Calls himself Israel doctrine. But he watches me, he watches me, he watches me. And that nigga won't jump on this Sodom and Gomorrah conversation. That nigga won't rebuttal what I'm saying. Oh, he's watching every episode. He's not going to attempt. I've given so much information on Sodom and Gomorrah, and I have proved conclusively that those cities were destroyed because of their inhospitality. I've proven it. And so these niggas is like the guy with the murder doctrine, struggle doctrine. You know, struggle doctrine. They talking about XXX Tentacion and claiming he's going to make $1 million off of a dead man's name. Stupid shit. And his queen that sits over there with him, well, they don't sit together no more because I have destroyed that union. She watching too. She's watching too. Got nerve to call herself a truth seeker. We ain't seen no information, no truth seeking from that chick for over a year. What I have done is I have exposed them as less than worthy competitors. I'm so glad that I didn't actually debate that woman a year or so ago. I'm so glad. Because it would have been a murderous route. She has no business sitting across the table from me in a biblical discussion. And the weirdo thing is, the nigga that was prepping her to debate me, he was giving her whole debate out online before the debate. And this woman has never debated in her life. She had a mentor that was giving her debate to me online, was giving her debate step by step before the debate. All I had to do is just watch him and know what she's going to say and know what to combat. But I'm glad it never happened. I'm not a biblical bully. I am not a religious bully. That would have been so unfair if I would have debated that woman. Some of y'all watching, you know who I'm talking about. She calls herself a YouTube streets queen. It would have been biblical assassination for her it would have been biblical murder for her had she debated me. Yeah, I'm the one called off the debate. I said, I tried to tell the guy that, struggle doctrine. I was trying to tell struggle doctrine, please, man, let's not do this. Let's not. I really don't want to debate. I don't want to debate her, man. You know what it is. Struggle doctrine. He was working against her. He was working against her by putting her debate online. They were discussing her debating me online. They were discussing what scriptures she was going to use and what tactic she was going to use, all online. He was doing videos. He wasn't helping her cause. But that woman, she figured a way out of the debate anyway. It never happened, and I'm glad it didn't happen because it wouldn't have been nice. But she figured a way out. And the way she got out of the debate was she woke up one morning and told me in a video that we are not going to do the debate where we had both agreed to do the debate. We're going to do it over here on this channel on someone who I consider an enemy of mine, someone I don't like, someone I don't know, someone I want nothing to do with. Because I've heard how he talks about children and other folks. And then I simply said, well, if you want to take the debate over there, then I'm out. You don't boss me around. You agreed to do it on this channel. Let's do it on this channel. But that was her way out. And because I said, I'm out, I don't want to do it no more, she went on to say that I'm the one that ran from the debate. No. When you have a debate, you make rules and both parties agree on the rules. And once one of those parties break the rules, disagrees with the rules, then the other person has the option to say, well, debate's off. And I say debate off. But anyway, I wanted to start out just making the observation that my enemies, they cannot jump on my content to debate it or to dispel it or to disagree with it. They have to shut their mouths. They have to talk about XXX Tentacion's murder. They got to talk about self-preservation and working on themselves to be better people. Because they know I'm over here kicking that real ism. See, the difference is when they were talking Bible and they would say some shit that was just outright wrong, I would come behind them and ride their coattails and show historically and scholastically and academically how wrong they were. And they couldn't stand it. And so all they could say about me was, he has no content. All he do is chase our conversation. He chases our conversation. No. I use your inaccurate conversation to teach the masses. But when I start a conversation,
how to use money.
I said, when I start a conversation, them niggas are mute. Them niggas are mum mouth. Them niggas want no part of trying to correct my Sodom and Gommorah narrative. They better not. They best not. Shut your mouth. Just shut your mouth. Shut up. That's what they do. They keep quiet. They either find some other stuff to talk about and lie about, or they just shut up. They just shut up. We're on part 11 of Sodom and Gommorah, and those bum-ass niggas haven't said shit, and they better not. But they're watching. She calls herself a truth seeker. She's all about, bringing truth and talking about controversial subjects, lost books of the Bibles, UFOs. We ain't seen none of that shit on her channel. She's lost in the sauce. Shook. Ain't got shit to say. Can't teach nothing. Won't teach nothing. All of her videos are beef videos. And they're all about me. They're all about me. What happened to your truth seeking? What happened to you exploring the esoteric? What happened to your Bible conversations? I'll tell you what happened to them. You never had none. My sister Leak You is over there killing any UFO conversation. So you can't fuck with the UFO conversation. Shout out to Leak You, Interloper Nation. Go subscribe to those channels. When it comes to Bible, you ain't with your king, so you can't talk about that. And the other nigga you sit beside, who you call the hand, he's dumb as a box of rocks. He ain't got no academics or no scholastics going on. He can't engage you in none of this, Bible stuff. And he watches too. And I'm entertaining. And I'm educational. I just wanted to start out by saying that. Damn, I gave it that 12 minutes. I didn't expect to give it 12 minutes. But my enemies, they have nothing for me in the way of this Bible conversation. They got struggle content. They watch me, and since I've been on this Sodom and Gommorah thing, they have to just sit there with their mouths closed and shut the fuck up. They cannot come behind me and disprove my Sodom and Gommorah scholastics. I like to rant I just like to make these, I like to acknowledge that my enemies are church mouse quiet. They better stay the fuck quiet. Niggas talk about I'm running from them. I'm afraid to debate them. What do these niggas got? They have nothing but the King James Bible. You seen all the books I done pulled out and information? I got no business trying to debate a struggle doctrine. The nigga is struggling with his conversation. Even his shorts are weirdo. Nigga's got ass on his shorts trying to show that beautiful young, what's her name? The basketball player. Niggas is struggling for content. It's sad. It's cringe-worthy that they struggling for content. Niggas bringing up XXX Tentacion, someone that I know dearly, claiming that I have something possibly to do with his death and all this crazy shit, claiming he's gonna make $1 million one day off of XXX Tentacion, the rapper. This nigga is struggling. He's struggling to find some relevancy. He got 5,400 subscribers and can't get 50 views damn near on his videos. Every now and then he'll get a video that might do 100, but the rest of his videos, they do 20 and 30 views. I'm only over here sitting on 227 subscribers, and I'm getting more than 50% of my subscribers who are viewing my content. I'm getting 50 views, 60 views, 70 views, 200 views with the 200 subscriber channel. So I'm doing quite well. Alright, you didn't come over here for this, I know. You came over here for the Sodom and Gomorrah story. I just have to say, I do have people out there that are trying to, they looky-loos. They rubbernecking what's going on the Khalil Amani channel. But anyway, let me introduce myself. I am Professor Khalil Amani, and this is Khalil Amani's World 100. And if this is your first time coming over here, please subscribe. If it's your first time coming over here to listen to my lecture on Sodom and Gommorah, and you have not seen parts 1 through 10, it might be a little rough on you. I suggest that you stop watching this video and go back to part number 1. I suggest that. But I always say, if you're a Billy Badass and think you know about religion and the Bible, then jump your ass right on in here. Now the litmus test that tells me or tells you if you know about Sodom and Gomorrah is this. If you think Sodom and Gomorrah's destruction was the result of homosexuality, then I tell you, you are 100% lost in the sauce, and you need to go back to part 1. That's the litmus test. If you're coming over here and you think that all the things that happened in Sodom and Gomorrah surround men, fucking men, homosexuality, then you're wrong. You just lost in the sauce. You are a victim of your Christian upbringing, of your Israelite fucked up knowledge. That's all. That's all. That's the test. It's a test that only you can take. You have the answer to the questions. If you think Sodom and Gomorrah's destruction was a matter of homosexuality, then I'm here to tell you, you wrong as 2 left shoes. Now, how about that? All right. On this part 11, on part 10, on the last part, we found out finally what the Bible has to say about the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. And we're going to start out reading them. For this whole part number 11, we are going to stay on the hospitality train. I'm going to give you sources. I'm going to give you ancient commentators. I'm going to give you the sources that prove that Sodom and Gomorrah was not destroyed for homosexuality, that Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed because of their inability to be hospitable to the stranger, to the traveler, to the visitor, to the wayfarer, and to the foot traveler that would enter the gates of Sodom and Gomorrah. These people, these strangers, these visitors, when they wandered or bypassed or went through the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, they would be beaten and stripped naked and ran about the city. And if they were hungry, if they were vagrants or homeless people looking for a morsel of bread and a drink of water, and they happened to step foot in Sodom, Gommorah, Admah, Zeboiim, or Bela, any of those 5 cities, if they happen to step foot in those cities and ask for something to drink and something to eat, those citizens of those 5 cities dare not feed these strangers and homeless people. For to do so, the citizens of those 5 cities, Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboiim, and Zoar, the citizens could be burned alive for feeding strangers. And then the stranger who asked, the visitor who asked for something to eat and drink, they would rob them first. They would say, "Break yourself, fool." And they would take everything that the poor person had, and then they would strip them stark naked and then run their asses out of those cities. That is the histories according to the mythologies of these cities. And so the focus has shifted from those of you who say it was a matter of homosexuality whereby God would destroy those cities. The writings prove otherwise. The writing proved that it was about being hospitable, that these cities, these 5 cities, were the most stingy and arrogant and proud and boastful. They were stingy as fuck. In part 10, we realized that it was about hospitality. And then I went on, we're gonna review that. Because most of you, 99.9% of you have never heard that the ideal of hospitality was an unwritten rule in the ancient Near Eastern world, and that this unwritten rule, it was for all nations. It wasn't just for the Israelites. It wasn't just for the Sodomites. If you lived in the ancient Near Eastern world, the principle, the ideal, the modus operandi, the model of hospitality was practiced by all in that region of the world. And they held up this ideal called hospitality, even though the word hospitality is not written in the Bible. The ideal, the understanding, the principle is in the Bible. And it is this ideal called hospitality that was broached and broken and destroyed by these 5 cities. And God hated that shit so much that he destroyed 4 of those 5 cities. We also found out that the key to understanding Sodom's destruction is right there in the Bible. It's right there in the Bible. So let's start with that. The book of Ezekiel outlines 6 things that made God destroy Sodom, Gommorah, Admah, Zeboiim, and Zoar. How come nobody ever goes to Ezekiel 16? How come your Christian preachers don't show you Ezekiel 16? How come your Israelite teachers don't show you Ezekiel 16? Ezekiel 16 crushes any notion that God simply destroyed those cities because they were homosexuals. It destroys it. And that's why these Israelites and these Christians are mum-mouthed. They turn a blind ear. They say they are about the Bible. They say they are about Scripture. They say they believe in the King James Bible. But when it comes to Ezekiel 16, 49, and 50, they don't want no parts of that smoke. So let's start with that. I said Ezekiel, the 16th chapter. Look at this. These are the reasons why God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. Behold, this was the iniquity or sin of thy sister Sodom. You ready? Pride, number 1. Fullness of bread, number 2. And abundance of idleness was in her and in her daughters. That's number 3. Neither did she strengthen the hand of the poor and needy. That's number 4. And they were haughty. That's number 5. And committed abomination. That's number 6 before me. Therefore I took them away as I saw good. See, that's God talking. Now, where is homosexuality in there? You don't see it. God lists 6 things that made him take them away or destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. Pride, fullness of bread, abundance of idleness, and not strengthening the poor and the needy, and being haughty or arrogant or proud. And finally, committed abomination. We talked about what it meant to commit abomination in part 10, if you need to review that or see what it is. It wasn't homosexuality. It was adultery and fornication, because Sodom and Gomorrah were largely heterosexual cities. And they were performing adultery out of wedlock, fornication, pedophilia, pederasty, child molestation, rape, bestiality. Yeah. That's what they were doing. So here it is. Now, let's stop it. Notice it says, neither did she, she is Sodom, neither did she strengthen the hand of the poor and the needy. See, they were prideful. When they have fullness of bread means that they were rich. And indeed, the Sodomites were one of the richest cities and richest nations of that period, supposedly. Fullness of bread. They had so much food, but they would not share. They were stingy as fuck. That's what it means, fullness of bread. They lacked nothing. They were so rich that they had an abundance of idleness. They could wake up when they wanted, go to sleep when they wanted. They didn't have to punch no time clock. They had idleness on their time, and that's what made them act a fool. Yeah. They didn't want to strengthen the hand of the poor and the needy. All that fullness of bread, they didn't want to give a morsel of food or water to the needy or the poor. They were some arrogant motherfuckers, to say the least. You got it? How come you don't have this teaching in church? How come every preacher and every Israelite teacher who mentions Sodom and Gomorrah, how come none of them give you Ezekiel 16, 49 and 50? How come none of these teachers, whether they're Christians or Israelites, how come none of them say, well, you know they were arrogant. You know they were stingy, right? You know they had an abundance of food. They were wealthy as fuck. You know they had a lot of idle time on their hands. You know that the Sodomites, they would not strengthen the hand of the poor and the needy. How come you never hear this teaching? You want to run straight to that abomination thing and claim that the abomination was their homosexual practices. No, 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 no. And notice also, of these 6 things that God hated, of these 6 things that made God finally destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, the abomination stuff that you think is homosexuality, it's the last thing on the list. It's the last thing on the list. The first thing that God hated about Sodom and Gomorrah was their pride. Number 2, their fullness of bread. Number 3, their abundance of idleness. Number 4, not strengthening the hand of the poor and the needy. Number 5, they were haughty or arrogant. And finally, that obscure phrase, they committed abominations. That was the last on the list. This last on the list. And so as I've taught, part 10 and now, because they would not strengthen the hand of the poor and needy, that falls under the category, under the realm of hospitality. Hospitality is defined as taking care of people, welcoming people, feeding people. When strangers visit, You welcome them into your house. You give them food, water. You let them wash their feet. You let them lay down and rest their heads. And as I've taught, and I'm going to show you the evidence again, that this unwritten principle, this word hospitality, that's not even in the Bible, but there is a principle that was upheld in that region of the world. Facts upon facts. That this ideal of hospitality, it was never written in the 613 laws, statutes, judgments, and commandments of God Almighty. It's not written. It's not part of the Ten Commandments. It's not part of the Judaic, Hebraic, Jewish, Hebrew, Israelite law. It's an unwritten law. It's a universal principle. It was a cultural principle of the ancient Near Eastern world. I'm talking about this unwritten rule of hospitality. It was so crucial. It's so crucial that even an encyclopedia, a volume of encyclopedias that caters to biblical matters, has an entry on a word that's not even in the Bible. How is that? I said, how is there an entry in the Interpreter's Dictionary of the Bible, a 5-volume set known as the Rolls Royce of biblical studies? How is it that this very word hospitality has its own entry and the word hospitality is not even in the Bible? Let's start there. This is new to most of y'all. Let's start there. We're talking about hospitality, y'all. A, B, C, E, F, G, hospitality. Which book do I have out here? Okay. G. E, F, G, H. What am I doing? I'm tripping. Okay. Here we about. We about right here. We about here. Am I in the right book? 654. Oh, okay. Let's get it, y'all. Oh, I'm in the right book. And so, we go over to the Interpreter's Dictionary of the Bible, volume E through J. How is a word in this book that's not even in the Bible? Here it is. See? This word is not in the Bible, hospitality, but it is so important that it's in a biblical encyclopedia. And let's read. Entertainment of a stranger, sojourner, as a guest, is recognized as a sacred duty throughout the Mediterranean world, and more heartily and stringently kept than many a written law. You got it? It's not a written law. It's a moral code that the whole ancient Near Eastern world, the whole Mediterranean world understood. It didn't matter if you were a Jew, Gentile, Canaanite, Egyptian, Sumerian, Babylonian, Akkadian, Assyrian. It didn't matter. In that neck of the woods, in that part of the world, entertainment of a stranger as a guest, it was recognized as a sacred duty throughout the Mediterranean world. The Mediterranean world covers all those nations I just mentioned. Entertainment of a stranger, it was recognized as a sacred duty throughout the Mediterranean world, and more heartily and stringently kept, practiced than many a written law. You got it? Yeah. Hospitality was to the Bedouin what almsgiving was to the later Jews, an expression of righteousness. Okay, that's our first source. Now you understand. A word that's never spoken of in the Bible from Genesis to Revelation, a word called hospitality, actually has a place and an entry in a 5-volume encyclopedia on the Bible. Hello. That tells you how important this shit was. That's number one source. Let's go to another book. Let's go to Erdman's Bible Dictionary, shall we? I said we're going to go to Erdman's. See, this is what my enemies can't do, won't do. They don't have these books at their disposal. Fucking fake truth seekers and shit like that. Fucking struggle doctrine niggas. They don't have this kind of stuff. They got to pull up Google, Wikipedia. Got to pull up a PDF. They don't have the books. Let's go to Erdman's Bible Dictionary on hospitality, shall we? Page 4. Page 431. It talks about Gommorah, and it says here, one of the 5 cities in the valley of Sodom, defeated by Abraham, God, look at this, God destroyed the city along with Sodom because of the wickedness of its inhabitants. Only Lot and his family survived. Sodom and Gommorah thus became proverbial for wickedness and divine punishment. While many take this account to be a condemnation of homosexuality, the focus of divine displeasure is rather the citizens' disregard for the Near Eastern practice of hospitality. Grand opening, grand closing. See, if you believe that Sodom and Gommorah was destroyed because of their homosexuality, they're talking about you right here. See, while many, if you are part of the many people who think that Sodom and Gommorah was destroyed because they were gay, Erdman's Bible Dictionary is calling your name. They're calling your bluff. They're calling you out and saying you on the wrong motherfucking track. While many take this account of Sodom and Gomorrah's destruction, this account to be a condemnation of homosexuality, the real focus of divine, that's God, of God's displeasure is rather the citizens of Sodom and Gomorrah's disregard for the Near Eastern practice of hospitality. Goddamn, go ahead, Khalil. Let's go to page 959. 959. It says something else. Sodom, often with Gommorah, became proverbial for conspicuous sinfulness that is ripe for judgment, and for thorough destruction sent by God as judgment. The idea that the fundamental sin of Sodom was homosexual behavior is not present in the Old Testament and appears only in later documents of the New Testament. God damn, y'all. So this idea that the fundamental sin of Sodom was homosexual behavior, I'm sorry, not sorry, it's not present in the Old Testament in the Hebrew Bible, and appears only in later documents of the Christian New Testament. Jude 7, 2 Peter 2. See? See? It gives you all these scriptures and lets you know concern homosexual behavior, male culture, prostitution in the Old Testament passages, but do not include in them any allusion to Sodom, as does the translation. We're going to get to that. We got so much. I'm getting all this. I've already shown in part 10, but I'm going somewhere. That's why I'm showing you. I don't know why I keep scratching my head, but I'm scratching my head. I'm going somewhere. Walk with me. So that's the second encyclopedia. Thus far, we've shown you the Interpreter Dictionary of the Bible, and we've shown you Urban's Bible Dictionary, and they both agreed that the sin of Sodom was not homosexuality, and they both agreed that the sin of Sodom was their lack of hospitality. Both of these books say it. Let's keep it moving. Let's keep it moving. Let's see, Oxford Companion. Let's see what it says. Now, the third book is called the Oxford Companion to the Bible. It is an encyclopedia of sorts also. We do sources. I said my enemies can't fuck with this. All they do is talk. All they do is talk. I'm giving you the sources. I've given you two. Here's the third one. This is the Oxford. This is scholarship. This is the Oxford Companion to the Bible by Bruce Metzger and Michael D. Coogan. But it has a lot of scholars that put this damn thing together. Don't think it's just two men. Oh, no. There's a lot of people. They just edited. But there's a lot of people in this thing. Yeah, forget that. I'm trying to find them. There they go. There you go. Dictionary of Contributors. Look at the names. And I guarantee you, every one of them are a professor. Every one of them have PhD. You see the professor behind their name. Professor. 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 You see it. Professor. 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 Going on down. These are the list of PhD professors who agree about certain biblical things. Here you go. I'm going to show you just pages. Hundreds. Here you go. These are the professors that put this book together. It wasn't just two men who say this. It's a consensus of scholars. It is a consensus. It is a consensus of scholars. What do they say about Sodom and Gomorrah's destruction? Page 292. Guess what? They have an entry on hospitality also. And they say, all of those scholars you just saw, they say one of the most highly praised virtues in antiquity, olden days. They say that hospitality was one of the most highly praised virtues in antiquity. In nomadic societies, hospitality was an unwritten law, and the stranger was regarded as divinely protected. Got it? This is true also of the Hebrew Bible. See? This word hospitality that's not written in your Bible, it was an unwritten law. One of the most highly praised virtues in antiquity, in the olden days, in the BC era. Even the Jews in nomadic societies, hospitality was an unwritten law. See? This is true also of the Hebrew Bible. In other words, the Jews, the Hebrews, and the Israelites, they also took part in this unwritten virtue virtuous law called hospitality. Going on down here. Nevertheless, hospitality is so highly regarded that in Isaiah 58:7, it is preferred to fasting. Hospitality is, nevertheless, hospitality is so highly regarded that in Isaiah 58:7, it is preferred to fasting. In other words, it's better to be hospitable to people than it is to fast. Goddamn. Woo! Do you love it? Are you loving it? I know you didn't know. I know you didn't know. Now we got 3 books. We got the Interpreter's Dictionary of the Bible that agrees that Sodom's destruction was not about gay people, homosexuality, that it was all about being hospitable, hospitality. We got the Urban's Bible Dictionary that agrees, and now we got the Oxford annotated Oxford Companion to the Bible, and they all talk about hospitality being a great unwritten law, a virtue that's so highly regarded that they say it's better to be hospitable than it is to fast. You never knew that, did you? A word, hospitality, that's never written in the Bible, yet all 3 Bible dictionaries and Bible encyclopedias have an entry for a word never used in the Bible. That's how highly regarded the word hospitality, that's how highly regarded the practice of hospitality was in the ancient Near Eastern world, in antiquity. That even the Jews, even the Hebrews practiced it. Oh yeah, I'm teaching. You think we're done? But we're not. But we're not. See, the real ism is that you can go to church every Sunday and whatever the preacher says, you don't fact check him on it. You don't fact check him. You rather come to a YouTuber's channel and try to fact check me. That's fine. I want to be fact checked. I want someone to take me to task. I want someone to do the studies and see if I'm in error. But when it comes to your preacher, Reverend Chickenfoot, he could preach any old thing and you all amen him. Nobody calls him on the carpet. No one says, that wasn't quite right, bruh, pastor. Same thing in these Israelite camps. I don't care if it's IUIC, IUSPK, ISUPK, ISUPK. I don't care if it's the Yahweh Ben Yahweh group. I don't care if it's Sakari. I don't care if it's Lion's Den. I don't care if it's GMS. I don't care what Hebrew Israelite group. I don't care if it's Brother Bowie's, the Church of God, whatever you call it, whatever his thing is. I don't care who's teaching about Sodom and Gommorah. If you go to these different churches and these different camps, you take in and you fully believe what they say. You don't question General Yohana. You don't question Yahweh Ben Yahweh, even though he's dead. You don't question the African Hebrew Israelites that were in Gommorah, Israel. You know. The guerrilla Hebrews. You don't question these folks. Captain Tazariox, Israel doctrines. You don't question these mofos. These mofos out there lying to y'all about Sodom's destruction. And none of these niggas, none of them, not the ISUPK, not IUIC, not the Yahweh Ben Yahweh group, not Sakari, not GMS, not the Israel of God under Brother Bowie. Not now one of these niggas ever gave a lecture, as far as I can tell, on this word known as hospitality, and further equated hospitality to the crimes of Sodom and Gommorah. Not now one of them have. That's why I sit over here in a league of my own. Motherfuck how many views I'm getting. I know I'm spitting the real ism. I know I'm not just talking out my ass. I know I'm giving you the consensus of scholarship and what they have to say about Sodom and Gommorah and what they have to say about hospitality. And they all agree, unilaterally, monolithically, they agreed that hospitality was one of the greatest virtues in antiquity, an unwritten law that was practiced more heartily and more stringently than many of the written laws. God damn. I could stand on that. That's why when you look in my comment section, it's all positive. Ain't nobody fucking with me. Ain't nobody tagging me in videos talking about, let me straighten out Khalil Amani. They dare not tag me, because I'll respond. Let's go on. We're not done with sources. We're not done with sources. We're going to look at a book called The Bible as It Was. It's a commentary by Dr. James Kugel. And he has something to say about Sodom and Gommorah. And he has something to say about this ideal known as hospitality. Shall we read? Of course we shall. Let's go to 185. Yeah, let's do that. I love showing you the information. I said we're reading from The Bible as It Was by James L. Kugel. On page 179, it has an entry called Lot and Lot's wife. Okay, so let's go to, we want to start, what I want to read to you is from 185. 185. Okay. It says, we're talking about hospitality. Sodomites' sexual sin. If earlier interpreters were thus somewhat divided about Lot, they were equally perplexed about the city of Sodom. God destroyed it because of the terrible things that were being done there. But what exactly were those things? Strangely, the Genesis narrative, chapter 18, does not say. The men of Sodom are said to be evil and very sinful. And at one point, God observes that the Sodomites' sin is very grave. Genesis 18:20. But that is all we are told. To some interpreters, here it goes, to some biblical interpreters, Sodom's sin seemed clear enough. Homosexual practices. Yeah, right. After all, when the angels sent by God arrived at Lot's house, the men of Sodom, both young and old, every one of them came to surround the house and demanded to have sexual relations with them. Was this not clear proof that the unnamed sin of the Sodomites consisted of just such practices, later known as a result by the word sodomy? In addition to specifically homosexual practices, some interpreters attributed to the Sodomites other heterosexual sins. Heterosexual sins in Sodom. Specifically adultery. That's a heterosexual sin, not a homosexual sin. Adultery and fornication. The reason is a certain verse in the book of Jeremiah. We talked about this in part like 6 or 7. That the Jerusalemite prophets committed adultery and deal falsely and encourage evildoers so that no one repents. They are all like Sodom. If God equates adulterers in Jerusalem to the people of Sodom, then it follows that the latter were no less guilty of adultery than homosexual acts. Okay? As a result, Sodom came to be known generally as a place of sexual profligacy. Now, let's get to what we're talking about. Here it goes. On page 189 of the Lot and Lot's wife story, it says it right here. Abraham's hospitality, there goes that word again. Being stingy and unhospitable, especially to strangers, was no small matter. Got it? From ancient times, this had been considered a particularly grave fault. Indeed, the Sodomite stinginess, if that was in fact their crime, stood in sharp contrast to Abraham's behavior. Let's stop there. And so we are being told that being stingy and unhospitable, especially to strangers, was no small matter. It might be a small matter in 2025, but back in the ancient Near Eastern world, they had a custom that was pretty universal. It was called hospitality, being nice to the strangers. It was no small matter. From ancient times, from the BC era, BCE, before the Common Era, before Christ, however you want to say it, but in the BC era, in the ancient times, in antiquity, being hospitable, this hospitality had been considered a particularly grave fault. Indeed, the Sodomite stinginess. Got it? All right. We moving right along, y'all. I'm simply proving that all these commentaries, no matter who you look at, some kind of way, this ideal of hospitality rears its ugly head. Or inhospitality or unhospitality, it rears its ugly head. And so we are in agreement that hospitality, being kind to the stranger, to the visitor, to the wanderer, to the wayfarer, is what they did. And if you didn't do it, it was a grave fault. It was no little matter. We even read in the Bible that hospitality is favored over fasting. Goddamn. That being kind and considerate to strangers, God prefers that over your fasting. We should read that. Where was that at? I should go back and get that. I'll leave that. Well, let's see. What was the last book? Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, I think that was in Oxford. Oxford 292. We should probably look at 292 because I've never actually looked at that. I have years ago. Okay. I said, according to the Bible, God prefers you to be hospitable. God prefers you to take care of the stranger more than he cares for you and your fasting, your personal bullshit. Isaiah 58:7. Let's go read that. The importance of this unwritten law. Let's read it. Isaiah Isaiah the 58th chapter. Make sure it's the right verse. 7. What's it say? Is it not to deal thy bread to the hungry, and that thou bring the poor that are cast out to thy house? When thou seest the naked, that thou cover him, and that thou hide not thyself from thine own flesh? Yeah, this right there. Yeah. Yeah. Is it not to deal thy bread to the hungry, and that thou bring the poor that are cast out to thy house? When thou seest the naked, that thou cover him, and that thou hide not thyself from thine own flesh? Wow. Then shall thy light break forth as a morning, and thine health shall spring forth speedily, and thy righteousness shall go before thee. The glory of the Lord shall be thy reward. Yeah. Yeah. It's all up in here. You'd have to read the whole thing. Yeah, here it is. It starts up here. Yeah, that's why it says, wherefore we have fasted. There it is, fasted. Wherefore have we fasted, say they, and thou seest not? Wherefore have we afflicted our soul, that thou takest no knowledge? Behold, in the day of your fast ye find pleasure, and exact all your labors. Behold, ye fast for strife and debate, and to smite with the fist of the wicked. Ye shall not fast as ye do this day, to make your voice to be heard on high. Is it such a fast that I haven't chosen? A day for a man to afflict his soul? Is it to bow down his head as a bulrush, and to spread sackcloth and ashes under him? Wilt thou call this a fast and an acceptable day of the Lord? Is it not this fast that I have chosen, to loose the bands of wickedness, to undo the heavy burdens, and to let the oppressed go free, and that ye break every yoke? Is it, here it is it not to deal thy bread to the hungry, that thou bring the poor that are cast out to thy house? When thou seest the naked, that thou cover him, and that thou hide not thyself from thine own flesh. There it is. Okay, we got the context. I wasn't quite getting the context, but I got it now. I got it now. And so, as the Oxford Companion to the Bible says, that God prefers being hospitable to your raggedy ass fasting. You hypocrites, you want to take care of your own religio-spiritual health. You want to go in the corner and fast for 30 days, 40 days, 7 days. You want to fast to purify yourself. But what are you doing to the less fortunate, to the needy, to the homeless, to the wanderer, to the vagrants and the indigent? God says he don't give a fuck about your so-called fasting when it comes to the people that need help. He prefers you to be hospitable over your self-righteous fasting. Isaiah 58 chapter. Okay. We gotta hurry. Ooh, we gotta hurry up. Now, you might be asking, what did the ancient sources, what did the early Christians, the ancient Jews, what did they have? You know, the scholars, the Levites, the priests, you know, the fathers, the church fathers, you know, the ancient historians, Josephus, Philo, these kind of folks. What did they ever speak on Sodom? What did they have to say about Sodom's destruction? Yeah. Let's go through it. Let's go through it. Let's go through it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let's go through it. So we're going to read some more stuff about this Sodom's destruction. Again, we're reading from this book, The Bible as It Was, by James L. Kruger. What did they say? What did they say? Here it is. The proud and the stingy. Interestingly, however, there was another tradition that held that the Sodomites' sin actually had nothing to do with homosexual acts or adultery or fornication. My goodness. Instead, their fault was pride or stinginess and unwillingness to help the unfortunate of this world. And we've already read that. And they're going to go right to Ezekiel. The origin of this other tradition is not hard to find. It comes from a passage in the book of Ezekiel that we just read, where the prophet compares the people's sins to those famous sins of the now defunct people of Sodom. And we read this, but we'll read it again. Behold, this is the guilt of your sister Sodom. She and her daughters had pride, surfeit of food, that means a lot of food, and prosperous ease, but did not aid the poor and needy. They were haughty and did abominable things before me. Therefore I removed them when I saw it. That's the scripture I've given you in part 10 and in this part 11. A different version, but nonetheless, Ezekiel 16, 49 through 50. According to this list, it was primarily the Sodomites' pride and their failure to aid the poor amidst their own prosperity that caused God to smite them, to kill them. The abominable things may also refer to Sodom's licentiousness, but this is not certain. As a result, a great many interpreters read the story of Lot quite differently, like Khalil Amani. Lot had settled in a city of haughty, wealthy, but inhospitable and tight-fisted people. In such circumstances, Lot was, if anything, a victim of the Sodomites, since as a newcomer and a stranger, he was likely to suffer from their lack of hospitality. See? Now let's read. In Syriac 16:18, it writes, He did not spare the neighbors of Lot, he, God, whose arrogance made them hateful. See? This is in Syriac. This is a Bible, a book that's not in your main Bible, but you can find the book of Syriac in other Bibles. It talks about the arrogance of the Sodomites, not the homosexuality. In the book of Maccabees 3, chapter 2, verse 5, 3rd Maccabees 2, verse 5, it says, You, O God, burned with fire and brimstone the arrogant, not the homosexual Sodomites, but the arrogant Sodomites who were unseen in their vices. You made them an example to posterity. See? In the book of Wisdom, chapter 19, verse 14, it writes, Others, the Sodomites, had refused to receive strangers. Not fuck the strangers, but to receive them. That's all about hospitality when they came to them. See? Look at this here. Look what Josephus says. In Josephus, the Jewish Antiquities, Flavius Josephus, the Jewish historian, he writes this about Sodom. Now, about this time, the Sodomites, overweeningly proud of their numbers and the extent of their wealth, showed themselves insolent to men and impious to the divinity, insomuch that they no more remembered the benefits that they had received from him. Hated foreigners, see, the Sodomites hated foreigners and avoided any contact with others. Indignant at this conduct, God accordingly resolved to chastise them for their arrogance, and not only to uproot their city, but to blast their land so completely that it should yield neither plant nor fruit whatsoever from that time forward. That's from Josephus. God damn, let's stop for a moment. Woo, y'all. Now, if I want to, I'm tripping. Oh. If I want to go read that, I can go. I have the works of Josephus. Flavius Josephus was the foremost Jewish historian of the first century. He was damn near, not quite, but he was damn near a contemporary of Jesus Christ. But I also have Philo. I got Philo's work. Philo was a contemporary of Jesus, yet Philo never mentions Jesus. Philo was born before Jesus, and Philo dies after Jesus. Yet Philo, a historian of the period, a contemporary of Jesus, he never mentions the man Jesus. Just a side note. But look what Philo says. Philo does not, well, look what Josephus says. Josephus does not make Sodom's destruction about homosexuality. Flavius Josephus, the Jewish scholar, he makes Sodom's destruction about inhospitality. Can we read it again? I said Josephus writes, now about this time, the Sodomites, overweeningly proud of their numbers and the extent of their wealth, showed themselves insolent to men and impious to the divinity, to God, insomuch that they had no more remembered the benefits that they had received from him, God Almighty. They hated foreigners. They hated foreigners. They hated travelers. They hated homeless people. They hated wayfarers. They hated visitors. And avoided contact with others. This is what Josephus writes. Indignant at this conduct, God accordingly resolved to chastise them, not for their homosexuality. God chose to chastise them for their arrogance. And not only to uproot their city, but to blast their land completely, that should yield neither plant nor fruit whatsoever from that time forward. This is what Flavius Josephus says. How come Flavius Josephus does not make it about homosexuality? My God. Woo. I'm teaching y'all. I'm giving you sources. I'm giving you the ancient commentators. Here you have the foremost, foremost Jewish authority, Flavius Josephus, who wrote the histories of the Jews in antiquity. When he gets to talking about Sodom and Gomorrah, he never makes it about homosexuality. He makes it about their arrogance, their stinginess, their wealth, not taking care of strangers and foreigners. And he says that God blasted their land, that nothing would ever grow again. Not because they were homosexuals, because they were stingy and arrogant. This is about being inhospitable. Oh yeah. Let's move on. Let's move on. My goodness. My goodness. This little source here is m.abbott 510. It's some source, some obscure source, but it writes, someone who says, what is mine, and what is yours. That is, who is unwilling to be generous. To be generous means you're inhospitable. This is the disposition characteristics of Sodom. See? This little obscure source also lets us know that the disposition of Sodom was that they were unwilling to be generous. Just a little source. Let's go on down. This guy here, a Jewish source, a Jewish rabbi, Perquay Dr. Eleazar. R. Yehuda said, they announced in Sodom that anyone who gave bread to the poor and sojourned or destitute would be burned. We read that in like part 8 of my series. If you gave food to the poor, you would be burned. Now, Pilat, that's the daughter of Pilatit was Lot's daughter, and she was married to one of the leaders of Sodom. She saw a poor man afflicted in the public square, and she was sorely grieved for him. What did she do? Every day when she went to draw water, she would take some food from her house and put it in her pitcher, and so would feed the poor man. The people of Sodom wondered, how is this poor man managing to live? When they found out, they took the woman, Lot's daughter, to be burned. And we read about that. We read about that, y'all. We read about, where is that? Hold on. We read about Lot's daughter being burned. We read that story in here. I read it to you in another thing. Let me give you the story. I said we read that same story that we read in this book here, the Bible as it was. We read that same story right here. Right here. We read it right here. Pilat, that's Lot's daughter, who had given a needy old man water and was dragged to the stake for her obstinate ways. See? Also those uttered by Lot's elder daughter, Pilat, Paltit, who had given a needy old man water and was dragged to the stake for her obstinate ways. We read about it again. We call that cross-referencing. Good Lord, I gotta go, but can I give you a couple more? Philo. I talked about Philo. I talked about Josephus. Now we got Philo. Philo has something to say about Sodom and Gomorrah. Philo, in his book Abraham 134 and 135, Philo writes this. The region of the Sodomites was laden with innumerable injustices, especially those arising from gluttony and lust. The cause of this excess in licentiousness among the inhabitants was the unfailing abundance of their wealth, of their wells, for provided with deep soil and ample water, this region every year enjoyed a harvest of all manner of crops. They threw off from their necks the law of nature by indulging in strong drink, rich food, and forbidden forms of intercourse. Yes, 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 yes. But you see, we're talking about being wealthy and rich and having lots of crops and, gluttony. This is about inhospitality. And we have that from Philo, from the works of Philo as well. Good Lord. Good Lord. Yeah. We got more. The Testament of Jacob, 7:22. What does it say? Oh, my sons, be generous to strangers. That's about hospitality. Be generous to strangers, and you will be given exactly what was given to the great Abraham, the father of fathers, and to our father Isaac and his son. It's talking about generosity. It's talking about being hospitable. Also, in the Testament of Abraham, it writes, all the years of his life, Abraham lived in quietness, gentleness, and righteousness. And the righteous man was very hospitable. 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 I gotta go. First Clement 11:1. It writes, because of his hospitality and piety, Lot was saved from Sodom. Hospitality. Josephus, we read that in Antiquities. But the angels came to the city of the Sodomites, and Lot invited them to be his guests, for he was very kindly to strangers and had learned the lessons of Abraham's generosity or hospitality. All right. Isn't it amazing? Isn't it amazing? I gotta go. But isn't it amazing that this word hospitality is all throughout the Bible commentaries, the encyclopedic dictionaries and Bibles and commentaries? Even the ancient commentators like Philo and Josephus, when they talk about Sodom and Gommorrah, they talk about inhospitality versus hospitality, being stingy, arrogant, greedy. The same themes arise, which proves that in Ezekiel 16:49-50, those 6 things whereby God would destroy Sodom and Gomorrah were true and direct. And this ideal that the sins of Sodom were homosexuality, that's some bullshit of the highest order. And with that, I see you on part 12. We are not done. Peace.